Welcome everybody. In this video I want to talk about what you see in the background, Firefly, so NIO sub-brand, and why I'm positively excited about the launch of this brand and what it might bring to NIO, and how I see it actually different to ONVO, for example. So this is based on a Patreon question and some topics around this matter which we've discussed in the Patreon community, and I thought it's really valuable for everybody out there to know my opinion about. And as always, as it is, it's just my opinion. You may think for yourself, it's not investment advice, but if you watch this channel for some time, then you possibly know that in the beginning I wasn't a big fan of ONVO as a sub-brand, right? I was actually quite skeptical about how they're gonna launch it, whether or not this is really a good idea to kind of copy the Model Y design, obviously making it better in some ways. And finally, when I went to China and I did experience the ONVO car in person, it's only then when I started to appreciate a little bit the approach that NIO has chosen to launch an individual sub-brand with the idea to really have a Model Y challenger out there that is really going one-on-one and possibly bring some volume. But in the recent videos, I've also talked about how I think this will be a challenge because of the fact that, ONVO isn't that new itself as a copycat to the Model Y, and that it's difficult to launch a new sub-brand that is not associated that much with NIO. So how come I'm more excited actually about Firefly, and how do you think about the topics around the strategy that NIO has chosen to launch Firefly in the markets, including the battery swapping build out? Now, again, for ONVO, one of the reasons why I wasn't too excited about is I think it didn't bring a novelty factor to it, and it didn't carry so much of the NIO DNA that I'm used to, like having this really, really exciting exterior designs and something that is really differentiated in the market. And in contrast, like if you just watch the video, I know the design of the Firefly car has been extremely controversially discussed, and some people really hate it, some people really like it, and some people say there are similarities, for example, to the Honda type of design. But I must say, just my personal opinion, that's why I was so excited after seeing it for the first time at NIO Day in person, that I really think this design is kind of flashy, something unique, novel. It has a wow effect. It has a curiosity effect. In short, I think it's bringing something new to the market there. And this is something that I didn't have with ONVO. Now, I do appreciate, and I think it's true, that this type of a car has a small market in China. So everybody who's saying that has a point in case. Such small cars are not a big thing in China currently. And if you just look at the competitors like Smart, like Mini, it's a niche market, and it may fit to something like a new evolving second car consumption model, maybe something more targeted towards girls or female person in general, because of the cuteness factor and the colorfulness and the youngness of the brand and so on. So yes, it's true that this market might not be the largest total addressable or total serviceable market to tap into on paper, but it's just my feeling. I obviously cannot back it up with data because there's no data for it, but I do think that this car, because of its design and because of this niche market it's going after, it may actually surprise even in China. Okay, so I do think I'm here in Europe right now. I could use a car like a Firefly, which has lots of interior space, lots of trunk space and size, is perfect for into the cities and on a small footprint. That's the ideal car for Europe. So I'm not so worried about Europe, that this might be an attractive offer. For Europe, I think the main part will be whether or not I get the pricing right. Okay, if it's competitive in pricing, then I think this car could sell very well in Europe. But for China, obviously there are question marks around. And so the point I want to make here is I think the expectations towards China are probably too low for Firefly, and for Europe, I think that's where the main target is. They need to make the pricing right, and then it could be just on point. So overall, I do think Firefly might be underestimated in what it could actually mean for NIO as a company. I think it could really contribute maybe more sales than what people out there are currently estimating and thinking, and maybe even in a time manner. It's always hard to say because, again, similar to ONVO, the strategy here is launching a sub-brand under a different name, something that is unknown. But I just think the product has the ingredients to make it a hype product, something that people really want, no matter if it's known or not, right? Something that ONVO clearly was lacking in a way. I think ONVO is not a product where you look at and say, oh wow, this is so different. In fact, it's just very similar to the Model Y. I really need to have it. ONVO needs to really build a brand, build the trust. People need to experience it. They need to get the differentiation between battery swapping and supercharging. They need to know how it's better than the Model Y. Then people can gradually transition and maybe find more customers. And that is lacking currently, the brand appeal of a NIO brand, right? But for Firefly, I think it's a different beast. I think people could flock into ordering it and having it because it's something new. It's something to stand out. It's something other people don't have. It's something to define your lifestyle, and it's something that you can have even if you got something else already. Even if you have a Li Auto Mega or whatever already as a family car, you might get a Firefly on top just to drive into 2 or 3 days into the city during the week. So that's my idea, why I think in China it could actually be very competitive and surprising in terms of sales. So now regarding battery swapping, I've heard also in the Patreon community a couple of worries about the strategy to build out battery swapping gradually as it comes, as the sales are going, instead of preparing battery swap stations beforehand. And then on top of that, obviously, it's having a new battery swap system, right? As it's a smaller footprint, not compatible with the current cars and the current swap stations. And I do think that this, while for NIO and for ONVO, I would rather see them building out battery swap stations first. They are a way of getting people to buy the car. And I think it was, and I talked about that in my channel, one of the strategic mistakes for Europe, not having the battery swap stations in a place first. Maybe go to a tiny country like Switzerland, experience different cultures on a tiny space where you can actually, plaster the whole country with a good infrastructure and then launching the car. So while I think for NIO and maybe ONVO, that's the right strategy, for Firefly, I'm not so certain. And the reason for that is, look at this tweet, which I retweeted by Arthur Shen, who posted, first of all, about the battery pack, which is now confirmed to be 42 kilowatt hours with 420 kilometers of CLTC range. And very importantly, a consumption rate of only 10 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So you need to be aware that this will be a tiny car with a small pack. That's enabling the small price or the low price, which is enough for driving in the cities, right? So, battery swapping for NIO meant high speed, performance, range anxiety away. Technology, always having the best technology in batteries. Like if there's a 150 kilowatt hour semi-state semi-solid hybrid battery coming out, then they can swap it in, right? So these are all of the arguments for battery swapping in a car like NIO. If you're a premium to luxury user and obviously it's also adding this user experience and stuff. I think for Firefly it might be different. I think people will not buy Firefly because it's swappable primarily. I think the car itself is so unique and different to what's in the market already. People may just go there and charge it, especially since the battery pack is so small. Charging may actually not be a big issue because obviously a smaller pack doesn't need much more time to fill it up. Plus, with this high consumption, like this high efficiency in consumption rate, the energy consumption may actually also not be a huge problem, especially for the use cases like the inner city driving and stuff. So it's much more likely that battery swapping for Firefly plays a role when it comes to fear about battery degradation, user experience, upgradability, different use cases for maybe sometimes long range, sometimes short range, and yeah, also the newness and the wow factor, that type of thing. So kind of different arguments why battery swapping is a plus for this brand as it opposed to ONVO and NIO, where it really is about getting back on the street quick with highway driving and so on. So that's why I think the build out of swap stations doesn't matter too much for Firefly in the beginning. It's more something like, I want to have the peace of mind that in a couple of years I might be able to resell this car even though the battery has degraded to 80% at a good price, because a new owner can simply swap in a new battery and is fine with that and stuff like that. So on top, obviously having the ability at some point maybe to autonomously swap, the ability to show off your friends that you can swap quickly. So, those benefits remain, but it's not a primarily the case why you buy this car, in my opinion. So I think we need to understand that battery swapping based on the metas here with a very, very small battery pack and super high efficiency due to the fact that the car is small and possibly not very heavy. It's a very, very different set than what we used to for NIO, and therefore I think it is fine to go this other strategy and build out the swap stations over time with less footprint and less capital intensive. So here are a couple of thoughts why I'm personally bullish on Firefly, that it may actually surprise. On a timeline wise, it may take still some time because of the brand building, but I said, I think there is a chance that this may actually pick up quicker than ONVO due to its newness factor, and people really actually want to have it because it's something different and unique, and it's going to a different target audience and possibly people that already have a car and stuff. So that's my thoughts around Firefly. Let me know in the comments yours. Thanks for watching.